In this video tutorial, we'll be going over the materials dialog box, adding a split face to a part of the warehouse building, changing those materials, and then also the paint tool. We'll also then get in and talk about adding wall sweeps to the top of our warehouse. The materials dialog box can be accessed in a couple of different ways. First, by selecting an existing wall, saying edit type, and going into the structure folder or the assembly folder, and then selecting the material that you want to work with, hitting that little button on the right hand side, and up will come the material browser box. And if you remember, the material browser box has a lot of little buttons that help us expand what we're looking at here. By default, the look is to only display on the left hand side what materials exist in the project. If you hit this little button here, it will show the library panel down below, and that will show you all the materials that exist inside the libraries on the machine. What I want to do is work with this EIFS material, and I'm not impressed with the gray EIFS material, but I want to change its color and material properties. So I'm going to highlight that EIFS material here and come over to my tabs in the dialog box and go to the Appearance tab. Inside the Appearance tab, it will show me that it's using just a plain gray stucco type material for this EIFS material. To replace that gray asset with an additional asset, I can select this button here that says Replace this asset, and I will have the Asset Browser box now come up. Inside this Asset Browsers box, there is an Appearance Library tab, and I can go down to Stucco and display all of the predefined stucco assets that exist. And I'm just going to choose a color that I want to replace the gray, and maybe I come in and say it's a wall texture beige. To actually replace that asset, I come here to the right and hit this little button with the arrows going opposite directions, and it will replace the existing gray with this new asset color. Once I've done that, I can close the Asset Browser dialog box and then come back to my Graphics tab. If I want that brown color to take effect inside my model right now when I'm using consistent colors or shaded visual styles, I can use this and highlight and select this Render Appearance tab right there, and it will extrapolate that color that can be used from what was shown over here in the actual image of that material. So if I hit OK right now, and OK, and back out, you'll see that my gray EIFS stucco material has now taken on a different color. I can duplicate materials, and we'll show you some of that as we go along, but right now this asset's using that textured beige look for our model. The split face tool is used to define areas on walls, floors, or other kinds of features that I want to actually just change a material for quickly. It's not like the normal split tool on the wall, but it only splits a certain face of that object. It sits on the Modify tab, and it is over here in the Geometry panel, and it's called Split Face. And again, what that'll allow me to do is to select individual faces of elements. One of the things that ends up happening is if you're in an elevation view, sometimes it's hard to actually see what face it is you're selecting. So I like to do these in a 3D view, and as you move your cursor around, you can actually see that the different faces will highlight and change. If I want to work with the face of that CMU block wall, I want to make sure that that's highlighted, and then I can pick. Then I'll actually shift to a elevation view, go to the north elevation view here, so I can see where it is I'm going to define this boundary for the split face. I'll come to my Draw Tools and select the Line Work tool, and then I'm going to split the face of this CMU wall directly up grid line 5. And I'm going to go from the orange boundary at the bottom of the wall to the orange boundary at the top and just cut that block, that CMU block face at that point. When I'm done defining a boundary, I have to kind of remember to follow the rules. It needs to be a closed boundary, and I can hit the green check mark, and I've now split the face of that wall in that area. If I go and look at that at the 3D view, and I take a close look here at the wall, I haven't actually split the wall physically, but I've only created a divided out area on the face of that. Once I've done that, I can go in and actually paint a material to that area, and it's conceivable that I could come in and stucco over the face of my CMU block wall. And so I want this portion between grids 5 and 7 to take on a look similar to what we have out here in the office area with that EIFS look. So I'm going to go to the paint tool, and the paint tool exists on the modify tab underneath the split face tool. Here's the paint tool. And then I can select what material it is I want to paint with. EIFS was the last material I worked with, so it's highlighted, and I'll just select that. Don't hit done here. If you hit done, then the box closes out and the command ends. But what I can do is, if I have the EIFS material selected, and I can come out here and highlight that face, and then pick inside that area, and I've now painted that EIFS material on the north elevation of the CMU block wall in that area. I would also want to do something similar to that here on the office side of my warehouse, and then on the reverse side of that, the south elevation there also. We'll now create a split face area there in the office. To set ourselves up to do that, I'm going to go back to my main level view and look at my elevation symbol here on the west side. Go ahead and pick that triangle there, and I'm going to move my front viewing plane into my building so that when I go to that elevation view now, I can see that almost as a building section. If I come back down to my west elevation view, I can now see inside my office area and get a good look at the face of that warehouse there. Come back to my Modify tab, and on that tab I'll find the Split Face tool here. And go ahead and highlight that surface, and then do a split face up the outer boundary of my office area, and then along that roof 1 elevation back over to the other office wall and back down there. I can finish that off by hitting the green check mark, and I now have a boundary to be able to paint there and around. So I'll go back to my paint tool, select the EIFS material, and just paint up and around that office area there. Because of the way the walls are joined, you may end up needing to have to paint the end of that wall right here. Sometimes those surfaces are a little hard to get a hold of. There, I got it. And so it looks like I have that stucco finish coming to the corner there. Next step in the process would be to come in and do that split face again on the back side. So again, the split face tool, make sure I get that outer surface, head to my south elevation view, draw a split face line up grid line 5 on this side, and then finish it. And I can get back to my 3D view, and then again there paint that back surface and get the end of that wall right there as well. So now I have a stucco look on the exterior portions of the building in this area. If I wanted to, I could come in and paint the CMU block wall inside my office area with, say, a paint finish of some sort. If I want to find a different material and just type in paint in the search right here, there's some different paints that come up, or I can get into the material dialog box and work with paints and coatings in there and add different materials. One of the materials is a paint and coatings, and if you search right now, it's not there. But if I come back and get in my materials dialog box, here's the other way that I can access it. I don't have to access it through the edit assembly box of a wall. I can come to the Manage tab and then the Materials dialog box here. And I can go ahead and search for paint. And you'll see that there are some paint features that do come up inside the project. That's what's here. Here's some paint materials that are able to be loaded into the project. I can actually duplicate a material. If I select, say, this textile blue, slate blue material, I can right mouse click over that and say duplicate. And then I can give it a name. And I'm just going to call it maybe wall paint. And once I have that wall paint material added into my project, I want to now find a color of wall paint to use. So I'll go over to my Appearance tab, and I'll come into my Asset Browser library and come to the Appearance library and find something called Paint. There are different categories of paint. This is just the general paint category, but we also have one called Wall Paint down here that will have more options to select, more colors, let's say, for painting our walls. So if I want just a flat kind of a white or a glossy white, I can choose some of those. Here's some linen. If I wanted more of a beige, here's a beige. So if I pick this, let's say I want the light beige finish, I can come in and select this arrow, opposite directions again, and it will replace that asset over here to a light beige paint. I can change its finish to be more of, let's say, an eggshell type finish, and it's going to be applied with rollers or a spray instead of a brush. And then I can come again back to my Graphics tab, say use a render appearance for that, and I now have a new material duplicated from an existing one to work with. If I hit OK, and I go back to the Modify tab and the Paint tool, I can find and search for wall paint now. Inside that, there's the new wall paint material, and then I can paint with that material my different walls inside my building and make it look however I want. I won't take the time to finish off the rest, but that gives you an idea of how you can create different materials from existing materials. Let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit and add some detail to the top of this warehouse and office area. If you reference the handout, on the handout it shows a canopy around the warehouse area here on this corner of the building, and also in the office area. Another feature or way that you can get some architectural detail at the tops of the walls is to actually use what are called wall sweeps. A wall sweep tool exists underneath the Wall tool on the Architecture tab, and I can select this Wall Sweep tool. The Wall Sweep tool is similar to the Floor Slab Edge tool that we worked with in creating that thickened slab. One thing to remember is sweeps will add material, reveals will cut material out of a wall. If I come to the Wall Sweep tool, I'll go ahead and select that tool. In my ribbon, I have the opportunity to say, is it going to be a horizontal or vertical wall sweep? These will be horizontal, and I'm going to go to my type selector and make it a cornice detail, which will put it at the top of this wall. And then I can come in and highlight the top of that wall and place a wall sweep along this top edge. I'm only going to do it to 3 sides of the building right here. And that will finish off creating this wall sweep. Now this wall sweep is not very impressive. It's just a default shape that it's using, which is a 6x6 square. If I wanted to come in and create a different profile up there at the top of this wall sweep, I can load in other profiles from my library. To do that, I can go to the Insert tab, say Load Family, find the Profiles folder, and inside there find the Wall folder, and here I have some basic profiles that are related more to walls. If I choose this Cornice EIFS profile, I can then open that and load it up into my project. Well, having done that, it's now there in my project to be able to use and change this basic default shape into a different profile. If I select that profile, say Edit Type, and then come here under the construction area, there's our profile line, and I can find that EIFS Cornice that I just loaded into that project. I can also give it a material at this time. So if I come here to my material tool and get back into my material browser, I'm going to go ahead and create maybe an accent color to this EIFS stucco that I'm using. So I'm going to call that just and search for stucco. Here is a stucco material that exists inside the library, so I'll load that up into my project. If I go to my Appearance tab, I'll look at it, and it's just again using that gray color for it. So I'll replace that asset, Appearance Library, come to stucco, and let's find something that might be a nice accent to the beige that we had before. So let's choose maybe the fine brown accent. I replace that asset and close it out. Come here and say Use Render Appearance. Now my stucco's taken on a new look. And this wall sweep will not only change profile, but now change material if I hit OK. And I now have a different profile at the top of my building. You're not stuck with the wall sweep going along the entire length of the wall. You can actually pick that wall sweep and with these drag handles, shorten it. It sometimes is easier to do that in an elevation view so you can get it to an exact location. So I've just shifted to the north elevation, and I'll just drag that profile down to grid line 5 so it ends there. And then I'll do the same thing for the opposite elevation in this view, so it only goes into that area there. It looks like when I come to my north elevation view and I've added some things, maybe I should adjust my elevation symbols to get them outside of the building. So I'm just going to go ahead and move those out right now while I'm here. So when I reference them, they're nice and neat the next time. So now we have that cornice detail only going from grids 5 to 7 and around the corner and onto the back side there. One other thing I'll show you about these wall sweeps is you can change how they return into the faces of things. So if I select that wall sweep there at the top of the building, I can come in and say I want to modify the return. And when I modify the return, I can set an angle here. 90 degrees will work fine for us. But if I pick that face and that edge, it will modify the return of the wall sweep so that it creates a nice sculpted finished edge on there. And I'll go ahead and do that to the other side as well. So now that I've got that wall sweep all set up, it becomes a lot easier to come in and add that in other locations. So if I come back to my architecture tab in the ribbon and go back into the wall sweep tool, there's my cornice detail, and I want to add that same EIFS cornice to the office area of my building. And it just is a matter of now picking walls and getting that placed.